You're watching Public Affairs. Berkowitz is my name, and politics is our game. And we will be doing lots of politics and public policy this evening because we have as our guest Caroline Vickrey. You might wonder who Caroline Vickrey is. Well, she would like to be the alderman from the 43rd Ward. She is in one of the 19 aldermanic runoffs. It's an amazing number. We haven't had that. I don't think we've ever had 19, right, Caroline?
I don't know the history, but it is an awful
It's an
big
awful
number.
lot, but the most important one, you're watching it tonight, it's the 43rd Ward. And we did ask the incumbent, Michelle Smith, to be here. She couldn't make it. We're taping it on Thursday, March 5th. So we said, how about Friday? How about Monday? How about Tuesday? She never got back. So she had her shot. There'll be various points during the show we'll say, well, here's what Caroline thinks, and I wonder what Michelle thinks. I don't know. She's not here. It's not my job. So it's not like I take it personally, but I do take it personally. Because it's not me. It's you folks, the viewers, okay? I mean, you here have a right to know what Caroline Vickrey thinks about everything, right?
That's right.
I can ask you whatever I want.
Absolutely.
I could say, like, what is the most important issue? That would be too easy. So if I said to you crime, let's talk crime. Because people say, okay, the 43rd Ward is Lincoln Park and Old Town and Gold Coast. Anything else? That's sort of it?
That's it. Yeah, there are other
Few other
subdivisions,
places,
but
but that's the core
that's what most people
Okay,
think
and
of.
so everybody say it's Lincoln Park, it's a bunch of yuppies, it's 90% white, it's affluent, it's got to be safe, can't possibly be concerned about crime. Would they be wrong?
They would be. We do have a crime issue in Lincoln Park and Gold Coast. My campaign manager was chased with a gun down a street in the Gold Coast on the way home from an event in the Gold Coast. Schiller.
Sure.
We do have a crime problem in the 43rd Ward.
So what should be done about it? We cut people off right here.
That's fine.
This may be why Michelle wouldn't want to be here. And we say, stop BSing. What should be done, Caroline Vickrey, about crime in the 43rd Ward?
Well, we'd all love more police. Even the police want more police, okay. And that's an easy answer. But we have budget problems also in the city of Chicago, and so that's probably not a realistic solution. Right now, we are probably not as candid about crime in the 43rd Ward as we could be. I really think that we need to improve communication about crime more than anything else. I think
let people know where the crime is.
Let people know where the crime is taking place, how much there is, when it's taking place in real time. And I think that we can do better at communicating with the
Michelle Smith, and you were at that debate to Paul, right?
Mm-hmm. I was.
Didn't she say, I think she said, look, crime data, crime statistics, she ticked off 3 or 4 major categories, and she said they're all down in the last 4 years.
Well, crime is down across the entire city, and that's true.
Oh, so those numbers weren't for the 43rd.
I don't know where those numbers came from because the Chicago Police Department does not track crime statistics by ward, so we don't know where those numbers came from.
Is it possible that some of those areas crime is up in the 43rd Ward?
We don't know because again the police department doesn't track the numbers by ward.
Your sense is people don't feel safer in the 43rd Ward?
I don't think people do. When we have a harrowing number of gun-related incidents in the ward, and that troubles people. Those people certainly don't feel safe, and a lot of people are very concerned about crime.
So what do we do? You said everybody would like more police.
Yes. Well, I would like to. I have a proposal to have a text alert system to notify people who want to know about crime in the neighborhood when it takes place on an immediate basis. Because I think too many crime incidents. Okay. Yeah, a text alert system. Too many people believe that crime information is really swept under the rug in the 43rd Ward, and we need to be more, I think, forthcoming with information and just more honest and transparent. We don't want to try and paint a pretty picture.
Can one alderman do that? If you get elected on April 7th and you become the 43rd Ward alderman, there are 50 aldermen.
Yep.
There's the mayor. What can you really do?
You can set up a text alert system, and that's what I would do. I would also like to reinvigorate our neighborhood watch program, which I think I haven't heard about in 4 years. I believe that can be stronger, and communication among all of our residents could be stronger as well.
Text alert. Do you think everybody walks around in the 43rd Ward with one of these, a smartphone?
No, I don't think that everyone does, and I think a lot of people probably don't, but there are a lot of people who would be very interested and who are always seeking out answers to questions that they can't seem to get from the alderman's office.
So more cops possibly, more information coming from the city specifically about the ward where the crime is, what's happening. Text alerts as to when the crime happens specifically right then, sort of real-time notice. Who's going to send out those texts?
The alderman's office.
Really?
In cooperation.
You have the capability to do that?
I think we would. we would.
Where is there any division between you and Michelle on what you would do if you were the alderman and what she might do relating to the schools in the 43rd ward?
I think the alderman tends to pit different schools against each other, and I would like to look at us more comprehensively as a ward, look at education comprehensively. I would like to bring us, we have a unique situation. We have preschool through the university level of education in our ward, and I would really like to make that more synthesized. I'd like to take advantage of our relationship with DePaul, which is such a great resource in the neighborhood, and really strengthen that relationship.
Don't you think she'd like to do all those things too?
She probably
is she doing that? Has she
would
done
say
any of that in the last 4 years?
she'd probably say that she'd like to do it, and what she actually does is I think what's more important.
And what'd she do in the last 4 years about education? Anything?
Well, one of the issues was the Lincoln Elementary School annex, which I was opposed to, and you know, I thought the process of handling that situation, it was a 3-year situation where the school is overcrowded, and I believe the process was not handled in an open and transparent way. Unfortunately, there were no public meetings that were ever discussed that were publicly announced that discussed the annex over the playground that was eventually built. And
isn't that supposedly the local school council? You were on a local school council.
I was on the local school council at Lincoln, yes.
Right. So isn't that something the LSC should have done?
The LSC was involved they did render an opinion, and they took a vote, and the LSC did vote in favor of putting a $50 million annex at the Children's Memorial redevelopment site.
Was that the right decision?
That vote, I opposed that vote, and I was on record as.
So you're active in that.
I was.
And you opposed it. Why?
Well, for 3 reasons. I thought it was fiscally an irresponsible decision and completely unreasonable, because to spend $50 million in a system that's $1 billion in debt when they're closing schools all over the city. Is not a good idea, fiscally wise. It also eliminated, an annex would, over the playground, would eliminate 19,000 square feet of open space, and we don't have enough open space in our wonderful city.
That's an issue in the 43rd ward. You want more open space in parks.
We want more. It's hard to get more open space.
At least don't get less.
We at least don't want less. Yeah. So now we have 19,000 square feet less, and then also just the process, because I think that if you're
going... What about the high school? Is there something about the high school here as priorities?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely, because I do believe that the alderman ran on a platform of saying she was going to support Lincoln Park High School, and she really abandoned that promise.
They need some expansion, is that what you're saying?
They have needed a capital infusion of dollars at that school for a very long time.
So capital would have been better spent there than on the annex?
I believe that it would have been. I think it would have been a better...
What did Michelle say?
About...
Yeah, did she say no, she would rather spend the capital on the annex than on the high school?
She didn't come out and say that.
She didn't say it?
We didn't have a meeting to discuss that, and that would have been...
Anything. She didn't?
She did not. Okay. She did not, and unfortunately she was...
Was she working the other job? Because that's become an issue, right? You say you want to be a full-time alderman.
I do.
That means you're not going to collect income from outside, right?
I will not.
Has she collected income from outside?
She has collected quite a bit of income.
It's public,
upwards
right?
of $1 million. I think over the past each year is about $84,000.
She just works for, she says it's a not-for-profit. What is it, local arts council or something?
It's an arts foundation. Yeah. I think it's out of Wilmette.
It's hard to criticize somebody for doing something to help the arts foundation.
Oh, absolutely. That's wonderful. A lot of people do it on a volunteer basis for free.
How much time do you think she has to put in there to get $84,000 a year?
I don't know. She claimed at the...
So she's got a full-time job as alderman. She says she works 60 hours. So maybe she spends 40 hours on the other job and she doesn't sleep.
She responded in the Sun-Times editorial board interview that she spent very little time. She said she did it...
So she just gets $84,000 because she gets like $20,000 an hour? Maybe she only spends 4 hours a year?
I don't know how much time is being spent on that.
She hasn't said.
She gave an answer, and she said that it was very little time. It was at night and on the weekends, so we don't know.
That's not a full-time alderman. She said she would be a full-time alderman. Right?
I agree.
We're not anti-Michelle. We just want to ferret out the truth. We're all about the truth. It's with the University of Chicago. Remember Michelle? She went to the law school there. University of Chicago, more than anything else, the university, truth, right?
That's right.
So what's the truth?
We don't know the truth. There's a lot of unanswered questions.
Because if she's working weekends and she's working evenings, That's not a full-time job as alderman, right?
The alderman's job is very demanding.
You have to
and I
work
do.
weekends and evenings as an alderman.
Absolutely,
Because
absolutely.
people call, if you don't get the trash picked up, they will call you, Caroline.
That's right.
And say, you pick up that, that trash,
That's
right?
right, that's right.
That's your job.
It's a demanding group.
It's like, saying, telling me how much time I have left, okay? So, okay. So that's an issue. Covered education, we've covered crime, we've covered full-time jobs. Development, that's like a key issue, right?
Yes,
So much of that debate was about development.
That's
and about
right.
Children's Memorial Hospital.
that's right.
Maybe Craig Hines misfocused it, or maybe, is that really key in the 43rd ward?
No, I think it's definitely an
In fact,
issue.
it's key across the whole thing. We could generalize this to many of these aldermanic races relate to development, who controls it, what's the process. Would
That's
you
right.
agree? It's not just the 43rd
Absolutely,
ward.
absolutely. It's any place where there's scarce amounts of space, there's lots of congestion. It's already fairly a densely populated part of the city, and everybody wants in. Everybody
It's the
wants to
economic
build.
problem, folks.
and-
Allocation of scarce resources among unlimited wants. Always a plug for our dear friend, the departed Milton Friedman, Free to Choose. But seriously, allocation of scarce resources among unlimited wants. Get it? It's limited resources, unlimited wants. Economic development, as you say, everybody wants in. They want to be in the 43rd ward. They
right.
want to be in Lincoln Park and other areas. There's lots of potential business there, and the developers want in.
Yeah.
And then other people say, this is our community. We want a certain amount of development,
Right.
but we don't want to not be able to walk across the street without getting killed.
Well,
And that's an issue, right?
oh, that's an issue.
It's literally
And I-
people
and I
getting
am
killed as they walk across the street.
I'm absolutely in support of development. I have architects in my family. I have many friends who are developers, and I fully encourage wise and smart development in the 43rd ward. I think it's something that we need to move
But
our ward
Michelle
forward.
can't be for stupid development, so what's her problem?
I
I mean,
think
we're all
she's
for smart development, right?
exactly.
I'm for smart development, you're smart. Michelle,
Some people might disagree with that.
you think Michelle is for stupid development? I mean,
I would-
she did go to the University of Chicago Law School, seriously. I mean, you have to give her that, right?
Yeah. I think
She
it's
did
about
pass.
it's
She
about
did
the process.
graduate,
There
yeah.
were some decisions that I think were very questionable with respect to the children's redevelopment
By the
process.
city council or by Michelle? Or
By
both?
Michelle.
Really?
With the
Numero uno would be
Yeah,
what?
the numero uno issue with respect to the development was the fact that she put the entire process on hold for almost 2 years while trying to find money to build this $50 million middle school, the children's situation that we were just talking about, the Lincoln Elementary School issue that we were talking about, to find.
She put what on hold?
She put the children's redevelopment process, the planning process, on hold. We had no community meetings
On hold? Why would
for a
she put it
year
on
and 9
hold?
months because she said, I'm not going to do anything with respect to this project until we solve the Lincoln overcrowding
That was her
issue.
priority, the Lincoln overcrowding
That's
the
right.
elementary school.
And
right?
you think
Well,
they
your
wouldn't.
kids went to school there, didn't
That's right. And you think that they
they? You're a
wouldn't.
supporter of the public schools.
Oh, of course, absolutely.
They went there for K through 8,
Yeah.
and then after you found St. Ignatius was best, that's where you sent your kids.
That's right. That's right.
Supporter of both private
And
and public schools.
that's right. And I attended public schools myself. My children went to public
You went
schools.
to Lane Tech?
I went to Lane Tech, and I will always be in support of the public schools
And
because
then
I
you
think they're.
went to Loyola.
Yes, yes.
Law
So-
school, Loyola Law School, right?
Yeah, so to finish the point about the children's process and what went wrong, so for almost a year and 9 months, we didn't have a single meeting.
Nothing.
Nothing, no public discussion.
Michelle, if you were here, what do you suppose Michelle would say? Well, she would
She's-
say the priority had to be on the Lincoln.
She said there was a
school
long
kids.
process of development, but when you don't have meetings for a year and 9 months, that's a stagnation,
So
period of
at the end of the
stagnation.
day, what happened? Was it wrong? Would you, other than having meetings earlier on, how do you suppose that process might have ended up differently if you had been the alderman in the last 4 years?
Well, there was also a fundamental disconnect between what she perceived to be a compromise and what the neighbors perceived to be a compromise.
She gave away too much to the developers? Is that the argument?
I believe, yeah, the
What
underlying.
did she give the developers
well,
that you wouldn't have given?
The underlying zoning of the project is the 65 feet,
Right.
which is townhomes, and I don't advocate that should have been the project, but there was a
You
special.
have to be more than 65 feet for the hospital, you're saying?
Yeah, the hospital had a special use permit to go up to 160 feet, and we.
160 feet.
Yeah, and then
You
we
were
had.
okay with that?
Well, I'll get to that, and then we had not one but two 190 100-story towers,
I see.
or 200-story towers that were approved. So it's much denser, much bigger than even the special use of the hospital.
You wouldn't have done that. You wouldn't have approved- or you would have fought that. Who made the decision?
I don't know
the
the
city council
exact,
makes that decision, right?
Well, the
But the aldermen
zoning,
and
the
the-
zoning is determined by the city council,
City
and that
council.
has,
But
and
the
that has
alderman
been
in
passed.
the ward has a lot of say.
That's right.
On the zoning board for the city will respect that, right?
Right,
Doesn't mean they always follow, they pay attention.
they do.
So Michelle probably had input, and you're saying she didn't argue strongly enough to limit the height of some of these portions of the building? Am I getting that right?
Yeah, that's right.
You
That's
would have
right.
argued more. Plus, you would have had a 43rd Ward
what I
zoning
would-
board, is that right?
Yeah, what I would have done is I would have had the neighborhood organizations on board early in the process and made sure that we knew exactly what their objections were,
Right.
and had them part and parcel of that process all the way through. So that there
Michelle
weren't.
didn't do that. She wasn't
no.
paying attention.
She did not gain.
Saying she wasn't taking care of business down home.
Right.
That's
she,
her ward, that's
she
her
failed.
area.
She failed to get a community agreement, which is the tradition in the 43rd Ward. We always have community agreements with all of the affected neighborhood organizations, and she didn't get one from either the Park West or the North.
If she were here, she might
organizations.
tell you folks, yes, she did.
No,
And
she didn't.
could, no, but
Yeah.
she could be
She
here
might.
and she could tell you that. And if she couldn't make it Thursday, we said, how about Friday? How about Monday? How about Tuesday? I mean, really, folks, if you want to be an alderman and it's full-time,
Yeah.
it's not just giving speeches. It's not just sending out mailers. It's actually subjecting, and not even just being at debates. Debates are nice, but you know, Craig can't follow up. He can't pound. He can't, because he's doing a different thing. Craig's
Right.
one of,
Right.
this show allows us to pound. If people want to be in office, they've got to subject themselves to questioning.
That's right.
Whether it's me
I-
or Rahm Emanuel, whether it's Chewy. In fact, talking about that, are you supporting either of those guys for mayor?
I'm not going to be making any endorsements. I'm
You're
not an
not.
elected
Okay.
official, so I'm not. Yeah.
You don't think
I'm-
it's right for you to? What about Michelle? Has she endorsed
Just
Rahm?
neutral.
Or is she working with Rahm?
She's I don't know if she's endorsed him, but she puts him on all of her flyers. That's for sure. Yeah, definitely.
She's like a Ron backer.
Yeah.
You're not a Ron backer?
Well, I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that.
You're just neutral.
I'm neutral. I
Okay.
will probably vote for Emmanuel in the.
You probably will, okay.
I probably will.
Have you told anybody that, or did we make news today? Because this show is not about you. It's
No,
not
yeah.
making- No, I'm
it's-
just kidding.
I don't
Just
know if
kidding.
that's news. It's I
Yeah,
haven't
okay.
made up my mind, but I don't.
But you say you probably will
I will.
vote for Rahm.
I probably will.
Because why?
Because I haven't heard any new ideas or new solutions, and that's what I'm always looking for. I really am
You mean
listening
you haven't
for
heard
new
anything new
ideas.
from Chewy?
I haven't yet,
So
and
that
I'm
means you go with your default as you go with the incumbent if the opponent doesn't
not
come up with new stuff?
necessarily. I think that the mayor's had a lot of very difficult decisions to make. I don't think anyone would be popular. I think there's a long way to go. I think we have a lot more to do in the city, and I look forward to working with either one of them. I really do.
Okay. If we're going to make that person our alderman, we want to know her core. We want to know if they sat down and had coffee with you, what would they walk away from? What would be their impression of Caroline Vickrey?
Well, I think they would know that I am someone who's been deeply involved in the community for a very, very long time, mostly on a volunteer basis.
Was
I've
Michelle
done
Smith like that before she became alderman?
it, not that I am
She was
aware
not
of.
deeply involved.
No. I've been involved in the parks and the schools. I love kids. I've coached in CPS all across the city, and that greatly informs my understanding of CPS, which is a very complicated system. And I think people will know that I truly am passionate about our community, about kids, and I really have done it up until now. I've engaged in public service because I love it and because I really care about our community. And now I'm running for public office, but it's really to fill a gap that I feel like exists. I feel like we can do better.
So I'm hearing you're passionate, you've been involved in the community, you love the area, you love
That's
the
right.
ward, you love the city of Chicago, and now they want to know, yeah, but are you going to raise our taxes?
Right.
Are you going to raise our property taxes,
Right.
Caroline? Vickrey?
Right.
And would it be any different if Michelle Smith were there? Let's
Right.
answer those. First
Right.
question, will you vote to increase property taxes if sometime in the next 4 years? What's your best guess?
I certainly hope not. We have property taxes are far higher than many other
You
places.
hope
in
not,
the,
but does that mean
hope
you
not.
might? Yes or no?
I really don't know.
What do you think
because
Michelle
we,
Smith would say? Do you know?
I think she would say no, and I don't know if she's being totally honest when she says
might do
that.
it, but she would say no. You think
Yeah.
you're being more honest by saying
I think
you
I
might do
am,
it.
because we have a really serious
But
situation
that's the city
in our
level. There are
hands.
also property taxes come out of this CPS, which is a $6 billion budget.
That's right,
Which
that's
is
right.
about the same as the city of Chicago budget.
That's right.
So if they raise property taxes,
Well, it's not as big as the city budget, but yeah, it's
close.
yeah.
It's close, I think. What's the city budget? Do you know?
As far as the total number,
Yeah.
I don't have that number offhand.
Okay.
I know a lot of, I mean,
So I think it's like 6 or 7 billion.
I can tell you what our pension liability is at the
Yeah,
city
and
level.
how much is that?
Well, it's either $26 billion or $40 billion, depending on how you,
Unfunded.
unfunded pension
So
liability.
do we have to, would you support a tax increase to fund that pension unfunded liability?
I think we need to look at pension reform, and it's a very painful thing that
complicated issue.
it's, people do not want to
We've
talk.
looked at
Yeah.
it.
We need
We're-
pension reform.
We need pension reform.
We do.
The problem is, it's before the state Supreme Court. On the state level, what's decided there could affect what's on the city
That's
level,
right.
on the county level, and we don't know how they decide.
Right.
So I heard you talk about this.
Right.
Okay? But in a nutshell, when you say reform, do you mean if you can, if the courts will allow it, would you cut some benefits of city employees?
I would certainly not relish cutting any benefits.
Wouldn't
and
relish, but might it be necessary?
I think it needs to be, definitely.
And
It
certainly
needs-
going forward where we can do that, I
Reforming.
think constitutionally.
Yeah, and
we
one
have
of
to.
one of the things now that the governor is talking about is letting people opt out, and I think that's
Opt out of the pension?
opt out of the pension program.
What do
and
they get for it? They must get something.
Move to a 401k.
401k. And you
Yeah,
would favor
a
that?
defined
Would you
defined
favor that?
contribution system. I think it's the direction that we need to go,
Yeah.
because we don't have the discipline as
Well, and
politicians.
85% of the private sector has gone that way, so
Yeah.
why shouldn't the government
Yeah.
sector?
There are lots
Not
of
that I have
there
any
are lots
opinions
of
on this,
reasons
and-
why they shouldn't,
Okay.
and lots of very good reasons why they should not go
But
in
you're
that
saying you would
direction.
consider it.
But I think that the political realities are that we need to go in that direction.
So you need to consider possible tax increases, you need to consider benefits being cut, you need to do something. You can't just put your head in the sand. Would that be right?
That's right.
And if
we
Michelle
need to-
Smith
we
were
need to
here, we
talk
would ask her,
honestly.
but she's not, so we don't know.
Yeah.
Do you know what she wants to do?
And
Yeah, we don't know.
I know that she is against, at our last debate,
Yeah,
she said
she's
she's against casinos. I
against
said
casinos?
maybe.
Maybe on casinos.
I'm morally
Because
opposed
that
to
might generate
casinos.
some revenue.
Right. I'm morally opposed to casinos, but I would favor casinos before a property
In the
tax
city of Chicago?
increase.
Obviously. Yes, we
I
have them
would.
elsewhere.
I would. There have been
Like
some
downtown,
credible,
any particular spot?
probably at McCormick Place.
McCormick Place, yeah.
I'm thinking.
Because all those conventions are there.
Yeah,
and,
I've seen some credible studies out of
Yeah.
Detroit that have shown that it's not as much of a regressive tax as
It's not a tax on the stupid, which is what people say the lottery is.
That yeah, and so
I mean,
there.
Seriously, do you play lotto?
Lotto, no, I don't
You
play the
play the
lottery.
Illinois
I don't.
lottery?
I don't.
Because it is a tax on the stupid, really, seriously,
Yeah,
isn't it?
I don't know
The
if
odds
I
of
call it
winning are
that.
so low,
Yeah.
unless you just like to take, if you like to walk across the street and say, I bet I'll be hit by lightning, you're the kind of guy or woman who wants to play lotto, right?
That's right. Yeah.
And
But
some people like to be hit by lightning.
right. Some people think it's fun, and the excitement of the possibility
Okay.
is thrilling to them.
Have we gotten at the core of what this race is about? Just tell me. I won't be. If we haven't, you've got 2 or 3 minutes yet.
No,
to
I
get
think
there.
I think we've had some.
There's nothing.
We haven't dug really deep, but I think we've touched on many of the issues that are important in the race.
So since you will be there as an alderman, we say alderman even though you're
we say
rude, right?
alderman. I think
Alderman.
we're beyond that.
It's okay to say alderman
That's-
here?
yeah.
Okay. So since you would be there as the alderman, if you win, and you're representing, in a sense, all of Chicago, I mean, you're voted for by the 43rd Ward, but you're voting and thinking about things that are broader.
Mm-hmm.
And in the Chicago public schools, I often throw this out, you may not realize this, but only 25% of the black kids, and not much more for Hispanics, in 4th grade in Chicago public schools read at grade level. 25% read
Yeah.
at grade level.
It's tragic.
75% don't. And that has not changed in the last 20 years of reform,
Right.
which started in 1995, and we're now at 2015.
It's
So do you think maybe we should do something differently? And you've got a minute. Outline what we should do differently.
It really starts with so many different factors that have nothing to do with education, jobs, and the economy, and really, getting our economy going and getting jobs for those parts of the city.
Well, but just try one. Competition. You believe in competition, right?
You're talking about charter schools? Is that?
That's one.
Yeah.
If you have schools who are not getting the job done, if you have anything, if you're selling hamburgers and they're not getting the job done, well then have some hamburger companies that can compete. If McDonald's isn't doing it, bring in Wendy's, bring in somebody, right?
Right.
So if CPS isn't doing it in the traditional neighborhood schools, and clearly 25% means they're not. They are doing it in select enrollment, they are doing it in magnet schools, maybe some charter schools, but traditional neighborhood schools,
Right.
which are like 300 to 350,000, only 50,000 charters. Yes, should we have more charter schools? That's a good question, and the answer is?
No, not any more than we have.
So you would not do that?
I would not.
And do you think Michelle Smith would say the same thing?
I honestly don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
So you would look for change outside of the charter school expansion?
I think that what we really need is more funding. I think we need reduced class sizes and really intensive attention being paid to kids who don't have the resources at home that the really high performing schools do. It really comes down to what's going on at home, and to the extent we can.
Home is important.
Home is so
Same thing
important.
with killings. When you have a 16-year-old kid, as we had in Chicago a few months
That's
ago,
right.
kill another 16-year-old kid because one kid wanted his jacket, and the kid killed it, didn't do nothing wrong. His mother never let him out of his sight. She did once, and he ends up getting killed. And people would say, maybe we need to instill better values.
Yeah, and it's
Is that possibly the solution?
I think that would be good. And it's not to say that I'm against charter schools overall. I really do believe that there
So
are.
why not, just curious, why
there are
not give
many-
them, why not, if they provide competition, if they provide choice,
Right.
and they tell us there are waiting lists of sometimes 10, 20,000 people who do it, why
Right.
would you say to the people on the waiting list, no, we don't want to give you that choice?
Well, I guess, and I do. I mean, I applaud those charter schools where people are clamoring to get into them because
You do?
they're doing amazing
But
things.
some
at
can't
those-
get in, so why not
Right, and
allow
so-
more to exist?
well, what-
Why not say, instead of having enough for 50,000, if 100,000 want it, well, let these charter schools come in, they have to get a charter, they have to do certain things, but let them compete. And if the traditional neighborhood schools do better, they're there.
Well, that's always the question that I ask. Is I
Yes.
always say, what is it that the charter schools are doing differently than the traditional public
We
schools?
don't know, but
and I don't know.
we don't know when McDonald's does anything better than Wendy's. But
That's
we do
right.
know when people go to one over the other, they probably are doing something better,
Right, when
or else they
parents-
wouldn't go there.
right, when
You wanna
parents
empower
want to go
parents,
there.
right?
But what I
the
sometimes
parents decide, don't
right
you think?
there's a self-selection process that okay.
Go ahead. No, go
Okay,
ahead.
there's a self-selection process that takes place with many schools. The parents who have the wherewithal to figure out the application and get their kids into those schools, those tend to be, they want what's best for their kids. Those kids are the ones who are better performing. And so to the extent that I've heard different studies. Sometimes they say charter schools perform better.
Right.
Some studies say they don't perform better. And so I would like to know what it is that, apples to apples, if they are performing better, what is it that they're doing? I would like to
If you
replicate.
became persuaded they were performing better,
Then
and if somebody
absolutely.
gave you the information, then you would favor an expansion of charter
Absolutely.
schools? So your mind's not closed on this?
I don't care who's paying for these kids. I just want to make sure that the outcomes are better. And
okay.
I think that there's a lot of different information out there about charter schools. Some I know for a fact are incredible places where any parent would be happy to send their kids. And there are then there's some other charter schools that are I have some more questions about that I'm not sure about. I think right now at the moment we have enough. And I don't think we should go further, but I do want to clarify that because it's a very complicated question. It's not, I don't think, black or white.
So our guest has been Carolyn Vickrey. She is running in the 43rd Ward. She is running against the incumbent Michelle Smith, who was invited and didn't show up. Look, on April 7th, that's the election, 19 aldermanic runoffs, Chewy, Rahm. You folks in Chicago, you have a lot of choice. There's a lot of differences between Rahm and Chewy, some similarities. A lot of differences between Caroline Vickrey, and Michelle Smith, and the other candidates in running in the 18 other wards in which there are runoffs. So we say get informed, come back next week and every week to Public Affairs. And Caroline, we want to close with, what is it people should remember about you?
That I'm open, I'm transparent, I will always answer your questions. I will be a full-time, accessible, friendly, and transparent alderman. I plan to have a ward night once a week so that you can talk to me about your concerns and answer any questions that you have. That's
So
what I'm
even
looking
if I'm
forward to
not
having.